We've been just modeling in JPA just a single class, right? It gets much more interesting when we model the relationships between multiple classes. So let's take a look at the first way of modeling these relationships of just a simple one-to-many. So for instance here, we might have a faculty authoring multiple courses or teaching multiple sections. So we don't really have a faculty, so I'm just going to use user as an example. So we have perhaps a user authoring multiple courses. So for instance, first let's model the course, right, where it might have a title and whatnot. And let's see then how we model the relationship between the two, right? So in the if we go back to our directory models, we can create a new class under here called courses, or just course. And this would be an entity. And let's override the name of the table to be courses. And there'll be an integer as its primary key that we're going to annotate as the primary key, and we're going to annotate that it's a generated value with a strategy of identity. There we go. And here I have just a simple string representing the title of the course. And that's it, right? Now, typically, from the point of view of Java, the way you would model the relationship between a user or faculty and that it teaches multiple courses is that in the user, you would have something like this. You would have a private, list of courses that you teach, right? There it is. And then you would have perhaps the setters and getters for this, right? So you would have, you would generate the setters and getters for these courses. There we go. So we can get the courses and we can set the courses. Now, as far as the, object orientation is concerned, you're done, right? There's nothing else to model. The parent class, the owner of the courses is user. And the only way that you could get to the courses is through the user. You have the instance of user, and then users, you can retrieve the list of courses. And that's it, right? You can set the courses, you can manipulate the courses, add courses, remove courses from the user. Now, because this is a relational database, the way that the relationship between a one-to-many relationship in Java is different the way you model it in a relational database, right? In an object-oriented world, it is the parent, the whole, that knows about the parts. Yes, it is the one that knows about the many, right? So here the user knows about the courses. But in a relational database, it's backwards, right? The whole doesn't know anything about the parts. It is the parts who have references back to the one. Yes? Usually the way you encode this is to have foreign keys from the parts, pointing to the whole, right? So to model that, because we have that feature in relational databases, we need to be able to capture that here as well, right? In a relational database, the relationship is binary, right? You can navigate from the courses to the faculty, and you can navigate from the faculty down to the courses by just saying that this foreign key is equal to that primary key. You can navigate both ways. In Java, in the object world, typically that relationship is in one direction, right? You can navigate from the parent down to the children, but usually not backwards, right? Not the reverse. There are some data structures where you might specifically encode both directions, maybe like a doubly linked list or other bidirectional graphs that have directions everywhere. Certainly, those are data structures but by and large, typically the modeling is in one way, right? So, but because we know we're going to be mapped to a relational world where the relationship is from a foreign key, we need to be able to capture that here as well. So we are forced to point to our parent, right? Because of we know we're going to be mapped to a relational database, right? But typically you would not, point back to your parent, okay? So anyway, here we can generate the source, the code for this, sort all the setters and getters, and we can generate also the constructor. There we go. Yes. So why are we pointing back to the user? Because we need to model the fact that the directionality is bidirectional, that you can navigate from both places, and it's where you annotate that this user here down when it's going to be translated into relational database. This eventually will just be a primary key, a foreign key pointing back to the user. So it won't be a type of user. It will be whatever type the primary key of user is. So if the user's primary key is an integer, then user here will be a foreign key. Also, the name is will typically have a specific name like user underscore ID, right? So that it knows that it's pointing to some primary key, right? All right. So we're almost done. The next step is to let JPA know that these two user and course are in a one-to-many relationship, right? In a one-to-many relationship. Also because it could be also interpreted as a one-to-one relationship, right? Or it could be an inverse, which we'll see in a minute. But here we're going to annotate. It says the way you should interpret this is as a one-to-many, where this is this courses here is on the one side, whereas the course is on the many side. Right? We have to say what cardinality is a relationship, right? So here we are on the one-to-many relationship, whereas this user is on the many side, and this is going to force this user to become now a foreign key. Right? Because notice that the relationship could all these relationships could be implemented with a many-to-many. Right? If you have two records and you want to make the relationship, you could make any relationship in relational databases with just having a mapping table saying that record is associated to that record. You can implement a one-to-many that way, or you can implement a many-to-many with that way, or you can also implement a one-to-one also with just a mapping table. Yes? But the mapping table is way too generic. Right? So here we are specifying don't do that. Right? I want to implement the one-to-many specifically with a foreign key on the many side pointing to the one side. Right? And here's is the annotation. Again, because there's many ways of doing the same thing. Right? So here we're specifying a particular pattern that we want specifically the one side primary key, and then this on the foreign key pointing to that primary key. All right. Beyond that, we have the many-to-one. And then on the one-to-many, we have to say how is the many side referring to us? Right? How is the many side? What is the field on the many side that is referring to me? Right? And the reason is that the many side could have many foreign keys referring to the same primary key. Right? And so we need to be able to distinguish, which one is it? Right? It could be that I have many courses, the ones that I'm authoring, the ones that I'm teaching, right? The ones that I taught in the past. Okay, my favorite courses. I could have many lists of courses. Yes, and all these courses might be all pointing to the same faculty, but I want to be able to distinguish, which ones are which. Okay, so this allows us to distinguish amongst multiple lists of courses. So here we have one single list of courses, the authored courses. So we're going to say here that the way the way that we're referring to it here is just plain old user. So one-to-many is mapped by, on the other side, as just a plain old user. So this is the field. This is the field by which we are being referred to. Right? We're being referred to as user here. Okay. All right. Excellent. So let's make sure that course does not exist. Let's refresh here. So we have users. So courses does not exist. Let's do a Maven clean install. So from the user's point of view, nothing should change, right, in the relational database. I have my primary key. I'm just going to have a whole bunch of other records referring to me. So from the point of view of the, is not working. What? Errors, illegal, fail, blah, 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 blah. Java, class, blah, 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 blah. Collection, one-to-many, many-to-many. Error, creating beam, yada, yada, yada. Define, invocation, fail, nested exception. One-to-many, many-to-many. Oh, many-to-many? Oh, sorry. This is many-to-one. There's also many-to-many. If we want to force this to use a many-to-many table, we can do that, right? But here we are choosing to do just a foreign key pointing to the primary key. All right, so let's try that again. Okay, so if we go back to the database and refresh, notice that now we have the courses table. Now notice that the users table, right, nothing should have changed. The same primary key, the same username. So that's what I want to point out, right, that from the objects world, you have a list of courses that you're related to. But that's nowhere to be found here in the relational database, right? There's no way that the user knows anything, right? It is the children, the courses, who have references back to the user. There it is, user underscore ID. That user underscore ID is based off of the field that we call user, right? And because it knows that it's a foreign key, right, it adds the underscore ID, right? And it uses the same data type of the primary key that it's referring to, right? So if this was an integer, then this is also an integer, right? If this was a varchar, then this also would be a varchar, right? Based on what it's referring to, right? So let's see how we would interact with this. Right? So we'd like to be able to maybe start inserting a couple of things here. So for instance, we'd like to be able to insert perhaps a couple of courses, right, and save them into the faculty, something like that, right? So let's do that. So let's see. It's in a new video.